good evening, everyone. Welcome to Food Literacy for All. We had the privilege of starting our evening off hearing Crown by Chica. I hope you all enjoyed it. The theme for this year is Planted in History, a food future informed by the past. Today we have the privilege of hearing from Farmer C. Tonight's theme will be Black Farmer Heritage Farming Practices. Food Literacy for All is co-led by Dr. Margot Finn and Dr. Shakira Tyler. We also have the privilege of having these other team members, including Megan Gross as one of our student instructors, myself, Nixie Hernandez as well, Kimmy Vanderwedge as the Sustainable Food System Initiative Coordinator, and Sammy Maldonado as the Food Literacy for All Course Coordinator. And as always, we're joined by DJ Cite, Chris Taylor, who helps us with all the technology. And of course, a big thank you to folks who make this possible. The 2024 Food Literacy for All course is presented by the University of Michigan Sustainable Food Systems Initiative with the support of the School for the Environment and Sustainability and the Center for the Education of Women Plus, CEW Plus. And the CEW Plus, Francis and Sydney Visiting Leaders Fund. And tonight you can stay engaged with us by using the hashtag Food Literacy for All on Twitter, or now known as X, at SFSI_UM. Tonight we will be having 3 poll questions, so please get your iClickers ready for that. And as always, these classes are filmed and will be available on the Food Literacy or Sustainable Food System website. And tonight we get to hear from Kaden.
In the podcast Conscious Chatter with Farmer C, I was able to understand and start to learn more about what farming looks like within the Black community. I think that in hearing and listening to a Black woman talk about her struggles with not only purchasing land, but also coming from a farmer background and not feeling as comfortable with farming as she would have liked, I think that notifies for us not only the hardships that come with farming, but the hardships that are compounded once you look at race and gender. I also really liked that she brought up in regards to Heifer Farms not only the economic purposes, but also the equality and educational benefits. She goes on to talk about regenerative agriculture, which not only aids in the health of, the farms that we see already, but also aids in the health of our watersheds and other biodiversity aspects of our society. And I think all in all, her discussion was not only educational, but it helped me to understand that land mass and land ownership for a while has been very racialized. And I think that seeing a Black woman break through that field has not only inspired me, but taught me to not see boundaries as a stopping point, but rather to find a way around them. And I really enjoyed hearing her talk about all of her experiences as a Black woman in agriculture.
Peace, everyone. I have the pleasure of introducing Farmer C tonight. So, from an agrarian family and Alabama's Black Belt, Farmer C is the CEO president of Green Heifer Farms, located in Liberty, North Carolina. C co founded Green Heifer Farms in 2018 and was selected to be the 2019 featured farmer for Hemp History Week. C describes Green Heifer Farms as an organic herb farm, a tea company, a natural health brand, and an educational resource and a movement. Raised largely by her maternal grandparents who taught her to always grow organically and consciously, Farmer C was taught to honor and respect the land. That land was true wealth because it produced. She is a student of heritage farming and indigenous traditional knowledge and incorporates honor and reverence to the ancestors throughout her farm's processes, products, and presentations. So we are in for a treat for Farmer C to bless us with her knowledge. So before we get into her presentation, we're going to go through a few quicker questions. Question number 1 is, among those you consider family, what is the most recent generation to grow food or farm the land for a living? A, I am a farmer. B, my parents were farmers. C, my grandparents were farmers. D, my great grandparents were farmers. And E, it has been more than 4 generations. I don't know. So take a few minutes. And of course, there is no one right answer to this question, right? This is really based on your particular story or lived experience.
Sorry, I'll just pop in and tell you the results because I haven't figured out how to show them. We had 3 people who are themselves farmers with us tonight. We have 19, about 10% whose parents were farmers, 47 or 26% whose grandparents were farmers, another 19%, 35 whose great grandparents were farmers, and 43%, the largest number, 80 people said it's been more than 4 generations or they don't know.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, and that's actually to be expected. No surprise there. All right, let's go to question number 2. Approximately what percent of farmers in the US identify as Black or African American? A, 1 to 2%, B, 5 to 6%, C, 10 to 12%, or D, 20 to 25%. Okay, just take a few more seconds. Identify your choices.
Okay, so here we have about 31% answered 1 to 2%, 36% answered B, 56%, 21% answered C, 10 to 12%, and 12% answered D. This is a little bit of a test of whether or not they were paying attention to a couple of weeks ago. We have a right answer here. Shakara, do you want to tell them? It's actually A. So 31% of you were correct.
Yes, there are about 1 to 2% of Black farmers in the US or they identify as Black. Thanks, my girl. You get off of meeting time. All right, number 3 is hemp regulation listed in the US Farm Bill. A, yes, B, no, C, I'm not sure. So to all of the policy advocates out there, maybe this is more up your lane. What do you think? Okay, Margot, I'll give it to
All
us.
right. So this is really evenly split. 30% said A, 30% said B, 30% said C. And I'm pretty sure it's A. Is that right?
Yes. Hemp is listed as a regulation in the US Farm Bill. And I'm sure Farmer C is going to get into why that is. So now we're going to hand it over to Farmer C for her presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for the welcome, the thought that went into this meeting. It's definitely well received. I bring greetings from Liberty, North Carolina, where I sit right now at Green Heifer Farms. I'd like to recognize the other farmers in the room. Thank you for coming. And I'm hoping that this conversation tonight, while I do identify as a farmer, I hope that there's something transferable or something that is relatable for everyone, particularly if you are interested in entrepreneurship, if you're interested in social responsibility, the environment, agriculture, so many intersections. But we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about some Black farmer heritage farming practices that you may not necessarily connect with the Black and the farmers of African descent that built the agricultural foundation of this country. So we're going to get into all of that. But next slide. Before we do all that, don't be a stranger. Don't act shady. Go ahead, connect with me on social media. I am a Gen Xer who enjoys social media. I have a wonderful time down here by my introverted self. Okay, you can find me on pretty much, well, most things. I don't really Twitter. It's not Twitter anymore. What is it? It's a letter X. I don't do they say X or do they still say Twitter? Or, well, I guess it was tweet. Anywho, I don't be on there, okay? Because I don't like Elon. But everything else, I'm pretty much on. So definitely connect. Also connect with my farm, Green Heifer Farm, as well. And let me know that you ran across me in this class. But don't be like just a spectator, like engage. Okay, engage. Let's continue the conversation. We can go to the next slide. So this is me sitting on stage last year at the B Corp Champions Retreat. And it is an annual event that is held for B Corps, certified B Corps, to get together. If you're not familiar with certified B Corp, essentially B standing for benefit corporation. And although different states have different structures, the certified B Corp credential is sort of like that universal recognition, right? And my farm, Green Heifer Farms, is the first Black farm in this country that has gotten this certification. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't the last farm to get this certification. So worked with B Labs to create the level program because the planting field is not level. And my experience as a Black woman farmer, and let me tell you a few things. One, I show up as my full and whole self because to do anything other is not good for my mental or emotional health. And that means I don't shy away from difficult conversations and I don't try to diminish who I am. And I am a Black woman. That is how I identify. That's how I'm going to show up. And my presence is not a common one in agriculture for many, many reasons. But I realize also that people tend to compartmentalize who they think a farmer is. Because see, in reality, yes, I own a farm, but I also own a sustainable herbal wellness brand that operates its own regenerative organic farm to self-source and remain vertically scaled in respect to taking care of the earth, right? I'm an environmentally conscious business entity. I am a CEO. I'm an activist and an advocate. I'm a landowner, an entrepreneur, and the list can go on. I have employees. I'm an employer. But I find that when people hear the word farmer, it needs to fit within a certain narrative. And when you don't necessarily subscribe, people don't necessarily like that they can't cancel you. And that's really my existence in this space. I'm not just in agriculture, I'm in entrepreneurship, I'm in consumer packaged goods, I'm in natural wellness, I'm in the herbal space, I'm in the tea space. It's a lot of rooms to be in. And for us, I knew that from the beginning, I had to build this to be something that I call it my customized joy factory. That's what this is. That's what everything that I create, where it comes from. So the next slide is a video that we're going to play. And this was a documentary.
I think the act of farming itself puts you in touch with your humanity. You're literally touching life. You're literally touching and experiencing growth that at the end of the day, you know, is going to go into someone's home. It's going to become part of someone's life. For me, that's one of the greatest purposes I can feel in this world. Like that is my purpose, to help be a caretaker of that space and to share it with other people.
That's a documentary that was done on Green Heifer Farms and myself a couple of years ago. And that's played at a few independent film festivals. But I had just had that building there moved to the farm. And that is an old sharecropper's cabin that I found late at night on Facebook Marketplace. They really should not allow people to go on there after a certain hour. But I went on there at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's this building that someone wants to tear down for wood. And I love a good project. I do. I love a good project. And I'm thinking to myself, that building looks pretty sturdy. So I go and I look at it, and I'm like, why would you tear this down? You know, this is history. And I buy it. Now I don't tell anybody I buy it. I told my kids we were going to go look at buildings to try to find something to put at the farm, but I had already bought the building, right? But anywho, I had no idea what I was doing and had to have it moved 7 miles to our farm that at the time did not have underground plumbing or electricity. Just had gotten a well working. And I have decided to take on this huge, huge project. And I look at it the same as taking on being a Black woman farmer here in the South, growing medicinal plants and herbs, really understanding in my creating Green Heifer Farms a few key things. But before we go into that and we go into heritage, the role heritage farming plays in this story, let's go to the next slide because I just want to show you all a few statistics. So the latest USDA agriculture census, they do it, I think, every 10 years or so, where they do their best to round up all of the farmers that are in their system and also try to find those that aren't. And they collect these data points. And so here are a few from the latest census that was released. 1.2% of farmers today, 1.2% identify as African American or Black, farmers of African descent that are American. Whatever term analogy, I just do Black. I keep it simple. But 1.2%, that's it. That's it. 95.6% of farmers identify as white American. There are fewer farmers. We had a drop. We went from 3.4 to 3.37 million. So fewer farmers. Next slide. $1.9 million. That's the number of farms that the USDA was able to connect with. The average age of a farmer is 10 years older than me, 58.1 years old. So farmers aged up a little bit. And out of all of the farms, 1.9 million, less than 42,000 of those farms are categorized as Black owned. Next slide. The number of women like me, too few to even merit a decimal point. 1 million farmers, that should be 1 million, identify as beginning farmers, and the USDA considers you a beginning farmer if you have 10 years or less of experience. That's just how much experience is required to be a farmer. And 74% of farmers make less than $50,000 a year in annual sales. 74%. So it says a lot right there, right? Next slide. It's understandable to me on many levels why there's so many Black farmers. Of course, systemic oppression, racism, um, legislation that was designed to take land, to keep from acquiring land. We know that. But also, I feel that many Black people that have a connection to farming see it. I won't say see it in a negative way, but maybe they don't see it in its full way. Heritage farming refers to the African American farmers, Black farmers, deep connection to the land, culture, and traditions that were passed down through generations. I was fortunate enough to spend an important portion of my life on my maternal grandparents' farm. And they had cattle, they did a lot of the typical produce that was grown in the South, Alabama. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot. Now, my grandmother had a full-time job, so it wasn't the only source of income. I also heard the frustrations, the challenges. And one thing that I walked away with was go to college so you can get a good job. I was never encouraged to farm, although I was encouraged to respect the land and to understand the wealth that land ownership provides in this country. But I was not taught to want to know how to farm. And I missed out on a lot. Now, fortunately, I followed behind my grandfather enough that I learned some things, and I was an inquisitive child, so I always asked questions. But there's so much more story there that is being lost, and especially so in the African American and the Black farming community. Because when we talk about heritage farming, we can go to the next slide. It's also going to be connected with TEK, if you're familiar with that, traditional ecological knowledge and indigenous knowledge. Now, the thing about agriculture in this country, this is my opinion here, purely subjective, but I feel that a lot of people look at Black farmers in a charitable way, almost as if it's a cause that we should give to. And this is how I feel. You really can't give Black farmers anything that isn't. It's not a gift, it's old. It's old. When you think about the country and the building of the agricultural foundation of it, and when you just think of what's old, it's two groups. It's two groups. Not saying that's it, but it's two groups that definitely are at the forefront. And that's the people whose land was stolen and the people who were stolen from their lands. And when we think about agricultural practices, we do hear about indigenous farming, valuable indigenous farming. And unfortunately, many of the big movements that we see have not accredited appropriately who's responsible. There's no such thing as regenerative agriculture. Yes, I use the term, it's the buzzword. This knowledge is already here, it's already been done. And we can improve upon it, but we have to stop acting like we're recreating the wheel every time. And then that becomes the buzzword, and that's what we throw money at. And part of that process is recognizing, I put the term BIPOC here. I use that term occasionally, like if I'm speaking to large groups, but I tend to not really like to use it or just toss it around. But it's an acronym for Black, Indigenous, People of Color. And there are a couple different types of knowledge. There's many more than this, but we're just going to group them together for this conversation. And TEK is your traditional ecological knowledge, you've got heritage farming, and then you have indigenous knowledge. And I won't read all of this, but TEK is that knowledge that has been passed down over thousands of years, like history that has not been interrupted like that. You know, it's that knowledge that folks who don't even deal with us have. Y'all remember a few years ago? It was a while back. It was over in North India, if I'm not mistaken. There's a little island over there that has what some say to be the closest human descendants of original, like, you know, Homo sapien, I think is the term. Anywho, that ain't what's important. What's important is these folks keep to themselves. Somebody tried to go over there, shot them up with arrows. Like, they keep to themselves. The knowledge that they have is TEK. The knowledge of a lot of your indigenous and Native American communities and cultures that, even with the challenges, have been able to remain intact, have this knowledge. Heritage farming is different because Black folks' history was interrupted. And you had a whole bunch of mixing of cultures and mixing of, you know, tribes and even people from different countries. So it had to be a culmination of that knowledge, plus what was added onto it as Black people were here in the Americas. So you have that. And then you have indigenous farming. And indigenous farming, while it can be right there with traditional ecological knowledge, TEK, it's a broader, more expansive application of the knowledge. It is including a broader understanding of the world. It's more expansive with spiritual beliefs, social standards. So we can go to the next slide. I encourage you to find out more about all of those, but we're here to talk about Black heritage farming tonight. And some of the things that may get overlooked about heritage farming, some of the contributions, I want to share them with you all tonight. One, preservation of agricultural knowledge. Black people were the ones that were farming the most. Yes, others may have participated, but by far and large, I mean, all things considered, the scale of effort that was put in to get some labor. So obviously, Black people were critical and integral to the agricultural landscape. And as part of this, they helped to preserve agricultural knowledge. If you have never had the experience of sitting at the feet of a seasoned Black farmer, you have missed a treat, and you should experience it in your life. They have knowledge that is, I mean, I don't even have the words. It's so expansive. We're talking about not just what we think of with horticulture, but soil science, entomology. Is that the one with the bugs? They are climatologists. They are entrepreneurs. They're mathematicians, electricians, carpenters. I realized early on in farming that I'm not I'm not as smart as these farmers. Like, sheesh, you know, people would look at a field and tell you, oh, this is so many square feet. What? How many square feet are an acre again? I'm just, you know, now understanding a lot of things that to many of these farmers is just common knowledge, and it's expansive. And it includes things such as crop diversity. because Black people brought crops to North America, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Sustainable farming techniques, things such as crop rotation, livestock rotation, those were things that knowledge that was brought with those that were forced over here. And then, of course, cultural preservation, culturally significant crops such as okra and melons and cowpeas and things of that sort. Next slide. So one of the contributions from heritage farming that I don't think gets the credit it deserves is seed saving. Not only did the Africans that were forced to come here bringing seeds, putting them in their hair. I don't know if you've heard of how the women would braid the seeds in their hair to bring with them wherever they were going. Black farmers also taught a lot on how to preserve seeds and how you could put seeds in a leather pouch and bury it in the ground so that you could keep it at optimal temperatures, and how seeds need to stay dry and in the dark. Those were not things that were commonly practiced. And Black farmers really contributed, African farmers, when they were brought here, brought that knowledge with them. Seed cultivation. And one of the other things that these farmers that comes from heritage farming that's been passed down, by the way. So those of you who may have those elderly grandparents in the South that would hide things in the floor, my grandparents did. My grandfather put seeds in the floor. He put money in the floor. It was like the floor was the bank, and it was the safety deposit box. And I didn't connect it then with what he had learned and what had been passed down. But that's part of that heritage farming, seed cultivation. Black farmers, heritage farming is responsible for a lot of seeds being acclimated to be able to be grown in North America. These farmers were agronomists. Why am I not pronouncing words tonight? They were agriculturalists. I don't know what the seed scientist is called. If y'all know, drop it. But they were horticulturalists. They were just phenomenal seed experts. And that's knowledge that has been passed through heritage farming in our country. You can go to the next slide. I'm tired too, y'all. I've been on the road, but I did get outside today. Another contribution is intercropping. And this ties in actually with the next slide as well. So heritage farming is really where the art and science of intercropping comes from. And intercropping is when you're going to plant different crops together in the same field because there's some benefit or symbiotic exchange between the two. For example, I plant marigolds with my cannabis, with my hemp plants. And I do that because the marigolds have a beneficial wasp. Okay. And a lot of things don't like marigolds too. So that helps. But they have a beneficial wasp that will lay its eggs on armyworm larvae. Okay. And armyworms are the bane of my cannabis plant's existence. And that is a way that I am able to not rely on pesticides and not rely on chemicals. that is something that is part of heritage farming. We have heritage farming to thank for that. Also, I don't know if you're familiar with the neem oil. Neem is a plant. That was also one of the plants that come from heritage farming. You can go to the next one. Ugh, bugs. How befitting, perfect timing. Oh, it's a ladybug. Girl, if you, oh boy, hold on, y'all. Let me relocate ladybug. I do apologize. Ladybugs kind of get free reign around here because they eat aphids, but they will also join a call or join a video. But natural pest control, I touched on that. We can skip on that. That's the neem, marigold, planting things with beneficial insects, planting things that other species may not like. It's many ways that the plants can work together, and you can maximize space and minimize your reliance on trying to chemically keep nature from happening. So another one that is near and dear to my heart that we don't, I think, credit heritage farming enough with is medicinal medicine, plants. The global majority in this world rely on herbal medicines. Like, most of the world is not going to hospitals to get astronomical medical bills. And look, I am a do what's going to work for you person. All right. I am not one who says, don't do this, don't do that. I think health is a very personal thing, but I also know that these plants have been around for for a long, 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 long time. And I also recognize that this is knowledge that has existed. Now, I'm not gonna say that there's this miracle herbal medicine fix all kind of thing, but we have learned from our ancestors. We have learned from previous generations, from information that has passed down knowledge, that there are plants that have medicinal value. And a lot of this knowledge is courtesy of the knowledge that was brought to the Americas from Africa, and that was then passed down through generations. I knew what would kill me in the woods because my grandfather told me what would kill me in the woods. I remember once seeing some pokeberries and they just look delicious. They're the most delicious looking berry. And I was about to go in. And I had an uncle that stopped me in time and explained that that plant can kill you. It also cannot kill you and be delicious at certain times, but you got to know exactly when those times are, because then it could kill you, kind of thing. And so that's knowledge that was passed down. And if you have had the experience of, you know, being sick with a grandparent and some type of hot liquid comes, and all of them are called toddies for some reason, but my grandmother would actually use herbs and also use herbs to help steam and decongest us. And at the time, I didn't really understand the significance of that, but I recall her sharing that this is what her mother had done. And I really wish I had dug deeper to see how far back that knowledge went, and had asked more questions about exactly what all the plants were. But that knowledge, although fleeting, is still present. And a lot of it has been used to inform other studies and other resources that we now take for fact. And then, of course, the seeds that they brought with them. They brought several medicinal plants from the continent, and those plants are now plants that we benefit from today. And some of them are culinary that we know, many of the greens that we love. And food is medicine. Yes, I do believe that food is medicine, as well as many herbs and medicinal plants as well. And that is knowledge that we have been able to gain from heritage farming. So next slide, just recapping. I wanted to leave time for questions. I wasn't quite sure how long I was supposed to talk because I can go. Um, so just recapping, uh, Black heritage farming. When we're telling the story of farming in this country, we have to be inclusive of Black farmers. And within that space, I would make an appeal to be intentionally inclusive of Black women farmers, because Black women farmers throughout agriculture as a whole, the voice of women have been suppressed often. It is very much a patriarchal space even today. And that's the reality of being in agriculture in this country, being a landowner in this country. But it's important for us to ensure that we do our job to support and uplift the Black farmers, and to get the knowledge that still remains, ensure that that knowledge is preserved, and use that knowledge in order to continue to inform and to benefit our planet. We want to continue to build upon the knowledge that Black heritage farming brought to crop diversity, and ensure that Black farmers today are able to participate in those spaces in an equitable way. There's actually now, you have the capability basically of owning the intellectual property on seed genetics. Yeah. And that is an opportunity that not all farmers are really able to participate in. So we want to ensure that that is an area where the planting field is level. The sustainable farming practice, from crop rotation, from, again, livestock rotation, from intercropping, from adding organic material to soil. Those are all practices that we can also thank Black heritage farming for. And for the resilience and innovation, despite all of the challenges that have existed historically and exist now in present day, we still do have Black farmers. The numbers are small, less than 42,000 that the USDA at least could track down. That's less than some college campuses. But yet and still, we're here. And farmers like me are deciding to come into agriculture and have conversations in the entrepreneurship space and the wellness space and the environmental space and in the climate change space, education space, because all of those spaces are connected to farmers. And then lastly, cultural preservation. Black farmers have a heritage of culture. We are culture. And we want to ensure that the history of Black farmers is sustained and maintained for future generations moving forward. There should never be a time of history on this planet that Black farmers do not exist in this country. And I will take questions now. Did I
Okay.
go to yes?
Thank you so much. No, that was perfect. And I'm so glad you left time for questions because people are already putting some great ones in there. And I'll be the voice of the questions just because they can't actually. It is, isn't it terrible to not be able to see their faces? It's the worst thing about teaching
Yeah,
this class.
no chats. Oh, it's only 8. Uh,
No, yeah, we have until 8. I'll have to stop us like 5 minutes early for some announcements, but we have anyhow. So there are really good questions already. There's one that connects to what you were just saying too, that from Erin, who says she's from Arkansas and saw how the majority of the farmers there were white men. What are ways we can shift power back to Black farmers? Is what she asks.
I can't say we're going to shift power back to Black farmers. I don't know if I would. Well, I wouldn't phrase it that way. I don't know that Black farmers ever had the power, but I think Black farmers were more empowered um, as there were more of them. And that's not black and white answer, like simple answer to that question. But I will say one of the key things that has to be done is land access has to be realistic. Prices are ridiculous, which means that those who own the most land are getting that much richer. And we also have to ensure that the conversation doesn't stop with land access. We have to talk about supply chain or supply network diversification and inclusion. We have to talk about capacity building. We have to talk about market diversification and how we are going to, as a society, number one, make farming make sense across the board. There's a reason why there are fewer farmers. It's not for the meat at all. Um, and then we also have to ensure, while we're doing that, that Black farmers are included throughout the process, and not to make it, you can't make it about numbers. Anytime you start to say scale or, use those kind of terms, you're shutting us out. Scale what? It's less than 2,000. That what are we scaling? You could give all of us 1 million, and that's a drop in the bucket for human beings that have that amount of wealth. So it's a multifaceted, multi-layered um, answer to that. We have to stop making farming seem like it's this, and some of that is making it more economical, but it has to be appealing to people. People have to see this as a lifestyle that's desirable. Um, and for Black people, we've got to heal our connection to the land. I mean, a lot of promises were made that weren't kept. A lot of things have happened. No, we can't undo the past, but we have to take some accountability. And I'm using the term we just loosely because I don't take ownership in that. But we have to take accountability and make an intentional effort to really support Black people in agriculture.
This other question I think is related to that or builds on that. Uh, asks, what is your vision for the future of Black farmers and their relationship to Black liberation and or society at large? So that kind of bigger picture that I think you were just maybe speaking to.
Okay, ask that again. What is my
vision for the future of Black farmers and their relationship to Black liberation and or society at large?
Okay. I don't have a vision for Black farmers. I think a vision is a very customized and personal thing. And I don't try to impart my ideal necessarily on others. For me, I would, if I had to put a vision out there for Black farmers, it would be that each Black farmer that exists is essentially happy to be a Black farmer. Like, they have the quality of life that they desire. They are able to care for the planet in a way that isn't cost prohibitive. And they're able to show up as their full and whole selves and move in the space without constantly having to just overcome obstacles that are just redundant at this point. Like, sheesh, already. That would be my vision for Black farmers. Black liberation can happen through farming, but there are a lot of people who are farming and they're not happy. I wouldn't say that they have attained Black liberation. I think, again, we know that the current distribution of land you're hard pressed to tell me that that's equitable and that's fair. So we know that. We know that, all things considered, the low number of Black farmers is an indictment against where we still are as a society. We also know that there are a lot of different definitions for liberation and what Black liberation looks like. I feel that when you have a lot of Black people that individually feel liberated, able to be in the same space, then we have collectively reached Black liberation. And in order for us to be able to do that, we have to have safe spaces. And that is one thing that I love about my farm. I'm not open to the public. You only come with an appointment. You're not dropping in to come shopping. Even people who come shop on farm RSVP. I curate the hell out of the energy that comes on this farm, because one thing for certain is I know that at the core of this is a Black woman's joy. I'm going to be happy. If nobody else, I'm going to be happy. That is a must. And so I feel in many ways that I have attained liberation individually, understanding I still am in this oppressive society, and understanding that that's not the truth for Black people as a whole. I still demand that my time that I have left on this planet, because time is the only real commodity, I demand happiness from that. And so in some ways, I would say I envision that for all Black people, for people. I think if there were more people that were happy and herbed up, that the world would be infinitely better.
This might speak to that being herbed up. We have somebody asking, can you provide some examples of medicinal plants and what remedies they can cure?
So I cannot tell you any plant can cure anything. I'm not a medical professional. I could get in trouble. There are so many medicinal plants. There are literally tens of thousands of medicinal plants. You have medicinal plants outside, the dandelion, one of the most powerful medicinal plants, the entire plant. Okay. Not only is it edible, but just tremendous medicine. You have plants that are more politicized, such as cannabis, but then you have other plants that are underrated: your passion flower, your stinging nettles, your lemon balm, holy basil, tulsi, which is a beautiful adaptogen. You've got your alteratives, which traditionally have been used as detoxers or blood cleansers, your adaptogens, which are great to support your immune system. They also help your body adapt to stress, physical, mental, emotional, etc. And then you have your nervines, which is what I specialize in. And those are herbs that support your nervous system. So there are herbs such as lemon balm, which some people have it growing and they consider it a nuisance because it's so prolific. But like the planet is trying to give you some medicine here. So if you have something that's all over your yard, before I have a saying, know before you mow. You could be mowing down some medicine. Um, yeah, it's so many of them. And you got your aromatics that the sense of smell actually can have psychoactive and physical effects. And there are herbs that pretty much have been used for any ailment. There are herbs that just support well-being. There are herbs that actually target certain areas, herbs that specialize on cooling inflammation in your body because a lot of things are caused by inflammation. So, yeah, you have to ask me about specifics. And let me just say this. I only know the plants I grow because there are so many plants. I will never presume to be able to tell you about some obscure plant that's grown in the mountains of Tibet. I don't know. Okay. I know every single plant, though, that grows here at Green Heifer Farms, whether we have planted it or not. And I'm fairly familiar with plants that grow within our growing zone. Used to be 7B, but it just shifted to 8A, even though the planet's not getting warmer.
So I'm wondering also, you've got that sense of like you had a grandfather who could warn you about pokeberries and you know the plants that you grow. But as we saw in our poll, we have, three other farmers here in our audience and 40% who are 4 generations removed or don't even know what the last generation they had anybody who was a farmer or had that kind of knowledge. Where would you suggest people go if they can't go to an ancestor of their own to find some of that knowledge? I mean, everybody's indigenous to somewhere, everybody's got ancestors
Yeah.
somewhere. If your ancestors are not super useful in this realm, like where do we turn?
Well, you can just find out what's growing in your region and tap into those resources that are within your region. If you happen to be in an area that does have agriculture, universities are a tremendous resource. There's usually ag extension offices in every county. And don't sleep on YouTube University or connecting with local farmers groups, farmers markets, trying to connect into the agricultural community. And then there are apps like Seek and Plant ID that you can use just to become familiar with what's in your yard. Like, do you know what is growing in the immediate vicinity of where you are? And just taking time to learn that, learn through that way. And botanical gardens, if you're fortunate enough to live in the area with botanical gardens, that's another tremendous resource that I encourage. And the public library. Stop neglecting your public library. Okay? Public libraries need us to go visit them. A wealth of resources available, especially on local plants and botany that is in your immediate environment.
Ashley asks, how can urban planners support Black farmers?
Well, I mean, some of us have businesses. We have websites. You can purchase our products. You can talk to your local co-op if our products would be a good match. If we do have an e-commerce component. If we don't have an e-commerce component and ordering from a website is not an option. You can also connect meaningfully with some farmers and support sharing their information, engaging with them, referring them if possible, and trying to just really amplify whatever it is that they're trying to share. And always, when you go to the farmers market, and if you see lack of diversity and you're not seeing different types of farmers, then speak up and say, hey, I'd like to see more a more well-rounded representation from farmers, and ask questions and try to advocate in that way. And there are lots of Black farmers groups that you can find online, and you can look at the various ways that they have listed to engage.
Another person asks if there's something that you wish your white farming colleagues would do to help support Black farmers. Is there something other white farmers can do?
Something I wish. I don't wish. I don't wish. Yeah, I learned at a young age that this whole wishing thing was highly overrated, because none of the stuff I wished for occurred. So, you know, I engage with those who want to engage. And those who don't want to engage, if we run across the same space, I'm going to speak my piece. I've never considered facts to be divisive, nor do I fall for that. The stats are what the stats are. I didn't go collect the data. The system that has allowed a lot of these inequities collected this data. So with that, I also know some awesome white farmers who are down for the cause, and they demonstrate the solidarity that farming likes to say that is our ethos, because there definitely is a lot of division. I have farmers that get downright angry if I specify Black, somewhat angry if I say women, but if I say Black woman, oh my goodness, the outrage. And then I have farmers who, when my cabin that I'm in right now caught on fire, were here to help move out the debris. I wish that there was recognition, and see, I did wish. I hope that there is greater awareness as to how these inequities aren't helping anyone. They're not more white farmers because white farmers farm better. I hope that's not what we're thinking. It's my hope that there would be more that worked towards a more equitable future. And along with that, though, I'm not losing sleep over the fact that that's not what is right now. What needs to happen still has to happen, and I'm 100% committed to that. So I don't know if I answered that question. I kind of traveled a little bit. Y'all asking some big old expansive questions. Sheesh.
Oh, I think I'll finish with one last one and then I've got to get some announcements to them, but this has been just
Okay.
so wonderful. I'm wondering about, you mentioned that the global majority, of the world, right, relies on herbal medicines. Um, I'm wondering what the influence is of those kind of global knowledges, or where that might connect to, the to traditional indigenous knowledges and to heritage farming knowledges? How is it that we get the global knowledge connected to the kind of rich heritage knowledge and the like people who are farming like you are? But then I'm thinking about we had a student here a few years ago who is a refugee and trying to set up a refugee garden specifically so that people coming here from other places could grow the things that they can't get access to, or things that find equivalents that will grow in our area that would enable them to cook and heal themselves in the ways that they're used to doing, which feels like an it's like it's not our local indigenous heritage, but it is indigenous somewhere. Again, that kind of like everybody's indigenous to somewhere. I guess I wonder if you see this in whatever the new regenerative or urban ag or sustainable ag movements are, the kind of influence of immigrants and diverse knowledges, I guess, from around the world, not just our own heritage.
Well, the thing about this knowledge is it's always shared and it's interconnected. So it's not separate. It's not Black heritage knowledge is separate from the global repository of knowledge. It's all the same knowledge bank. And these conversations are being had. I have conversations with farmers and herbalists and other agriculturalists, etc., around the world on a regular basis. And I think there's always been a connectivity and a willingness to share information uh, throughout spaces. And I think that there are a lot of westernized mindsets that need to understand that requesting acknowledgement and recognition doesn't mean necessarily now we're taking ownership, because society benefits from this information that's happening. I think for those who want to get plugged in, then it's making an effort to connect with some of the knowledge bearers from other parts of the world and being intentional about creating a more inclusive network for your personal life. Because there are conferences that occur. Technology has made the transference of information just that much more convenient. There's phenomenal content creators out there, even that are really moving the conversation forward in certain spaces. But there has to be a desire by mainstream to really welcome in this knowledge and to really start to, you know, start to demand more in this space. Your insurance companies, how many of them will allow you to seek some type of natural or plant-based remedy or health option? And I think that when there's that public push, that's when it becomes more mainstream. But for those who are like, I can't wait on everybody, I'm trying to know mine now. Yeah, look at who you're ingesting as far as information from. It's just some phenomenal people out there sharing it. And I will say again, don't sleep on YouTube University. Fantastic long content that's being created. I just watched one today on the medicinal benefits from the cotton plant that I had no idea about, from a fabulous herbalist in Jamaica. So yeah, the conversations are definitely being had.
Thank you so much for that example. Oh, all right. No, sorry. This is just such a lovely question, and I want to give you a chance to speak to it. Somebody asks, how do you continue to show and be confident in your Blackness in spaces where you are not represented?
How am I comfortable in my Blackness? I'm comfortable in my meanness, period. I'm comfortable being Clarinda. And so when I'm coming into a space, I'm coming as me, as me. I can't look, I have worked in some rooms with some very powerful people. My previous profession before becoming a farmer, I was a global fundraiser. I flew all over the world to talk to people about really important projects and given large amounts of money. And many times these people had never discussed their wealth or giving of large sums with a Black person. And they got me. Lucky day. Lucky day. Add a zero, Fred. I am not going to allow this world to steal my joy. I'm happy to be me. I'm happy I was created exactly like me. If my Blackness is an issue for you, then poor you. Woe is your life. I I just show up and let folks feel whatever big feeling that they need to feel. If I trigger them in some kind of way, guess what? Their comfort is not my ministry. It's not. I don't allow that burden to be placed on me. That's just me. I had to do that for my own personal, mental, and emotional well-being and my psychological safety. Plus, I have a lot of herbs in my body. Like my plants will not allow me to indiscriminately just care about whatever. Y'all have an issue with my Blackness. Well, I'm gonna make you have a bigger issue with it. How about that?
Thank
That's
you.
my
That's wonderful. All right. I have to tell them a little bit about assignments and work coming up, the unfun part. But so I'm going to share my screen briefly to do that. Thank you so much.
all right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.